On behalf of the Louisiana Center for the Book and the State Library of Louisiana, thank you for joining us as we continue our celebration of the 25th Annual National Poetry Month with today's Lagniappe event, Just Listen to Yourself, a retrospective. Our Just Listen to Yourself, the Louisiana Poet Laureate Presents Louisiana Poets, was originated by Poet Laureate Darrell Bourke in 2011. This annual event was then hosted by each of the state's subsequent poet laureates, Julie Kane, Ava Lavelle Heyman, Peter Cooley, Jack Bedell, and John Warner Smith. From its inception to the program we featured last week, the program has hosted 62 different poets. For today's celebration of the past decade of Just Listen to Yourself, it was only appropriate to ask Darrell Bourke to host his 5 fellow poet laureates who have hosted the event as they read some of their work for us. Darrell Bourke served as Louisiana Poet Laureate from 2007 to 2011. He is the 2014 recipient of the Louisiana Writer Award and the 2019 recipient of the Louisiana Endowment for the Humanities Humanist of the Year Award. His works include poetry profiles of traditional Louisiana musicians, Cloma Falcon, Amédée Audouin, Irie Lejeune, and Goldman Thibodeau, social activist Henriette Delille, and legendary historical figure Joseph Beausoleil Broussard. His most recent work, Migrare, is a set of ghazals keyed to the paintings of Louisiana abstract expressionist Bill Jingles. In addition, Darrell represents Louisiana very well as a founding member of the global organization Narrative 4, the international story exchange driven by artists, shaped by educators, and led by students.
With this event, we enter the 11th year of Just Listen to Yourself, a series intended to celebrate National Poetry Month, but also because hearing the voices in poems is sustenance in any month, any year, any time. Whether it's the blue notes that so many poems are built on, or the glory notes borrowed from hymnal sensibilities, those notes are essential to our being. Whether we hear a Brenda Marie Osby or a Mona Lisa Saloy, a Lucille Clifton or a Mark Doty, a Chancellor Skidmore, a Joy Harjo, or an Allison Pellegrin, a Whitman, a Dickinson, a Frost, a Lee Young Lee, Kane, Cooley, Heyman, Bedell, or Smith, we hear being itself articulated. What it is one poem covers us all. All conciliation, all reparation, all pursuit of happiness begins in listening so deeply and intently that we can begin to see ourselves in other. In every other, you will find yourself. That's the belief this series is founded upon. Julie Kane is Louisiana's 2011 to 2013 Poet Laureate. Her 5th and most recent poetry book is Mothers of Ireland. In addition, Red Hen Press has just reprinted her Donald Justice Prize-winning book, Jazz Funeral. With Grace Bauer, Julie co-edited Nasty Women Poets, an unapologetic anthology of subversive verse. Professor Emerita at Northwestern State University in Natchitoches, she currently teaches in the low residency MFA program at Western Colorado University.
Thank you so much for allowing me to take part in this event. The 2 years that I spent as Louisiana Poet Laureate were the most fun I've ever had as a poet, traveling all around the state and meeting so many people who either loved poetry or were curious about poetry. It was just the greatest experience of my career as a poet. And also, my fellow laureates are just some of the best people in the world. So this is such a treat to be able to take part in this reunion of sorts. I'm going to read a few poems from my new book, Mothers of Ireland, which just came out from LSU Press in the last year. And then I'm going to read a couple of new poems, okay? And I'm going to start with one about my great-grandmother, Mary McCarthy, called Second Time Around. She was a little Irish girl in Knockmulan, Cork, Ireland, and was proposed to, and here's what she did. Second time around. Back when I used to smoke, I'd stub them out in crystal ashtrays all around the house that turned my stomach emptied in the trash. Times when I slipped the last one from the pack too late at night to risk a run for more at some gas station / convenience store, I'd comb through ashes for the longest butts and light them up again without disgust. Minnie McCarthy scandalized the town of Knockmulan, Cork, turning Jack Lynch down. Pretty girls wanted American fun, not boredom in Ireland with a farmer's son. He followed her over and found her on her knees scrubbing Protestant toilets for a couple bucks a week and proposed to her again with no resistance met. He was the longest butt she was going to get. Now, you probably think that's a very romantic story that, they met up again in the U.S. and married and lived happily ever after. But she was a mean woman, a sharp-tongued woman, and she really made his life difficult. This is a little sonnet about their relationship called That One Over. She wore the china cabinet key around her neck as if she couldn't trust even her longtime mate to keep from making off with a gold-rimmed plate to hawk for whiskey money when he'd spent his check. And what was inside the cabinet to warrant theft? China with chipped edges, silver that was silver plate, a cut crystal jam jar she grandly called a vase, a statue of Mary that a Lord's priest had blessed. Everyone else in town thought her man hung the moon. She wouldn't even call him by his Christian name. That one over, she'd say, pointing across the room. She made him sleep on the porch when he'd had a few. To be Irish then was to be awash in shame. He hadn't deceived her yet, but you never knew. This one is about my grandmother's sister, Julia, who was born with a heart defect. And the doctors told her parents that she could never marry because being pregnant and giving birth to a child would kill her. So this is her story, her heart. Julia Margaret Lynch Curtin. My grandmother's sister, Julia, was born with a flaw in her heart. The doctor's words to her parents tore like a claw to the heart. Head of her bed by a window, no winter thaw for her heart. Never to wed, because childbirth would be the last straw for her heart. Rumors her father punched at least one suitor's jaw for her heart, but a red-headed traveling salesman would not withdraw from her heart, swearing his love was chaste and he'd keep hands off for her heart, swearing on Mary and Jesus with one freckled paw on his heart. How could her bantamweight father not go soft in the heart? Beautiful bride, such a chorus of oohs and ahs from all hearts. When her belly poked out, it proved there is no law to the heart. Julia's motherless boys would grow up raw in the heart. And that's a true story. Her fiance, her husband-to-be, promised her father that if they married, he wouldn't sleep with her. He'd just kiss her. And alas, that's not what happened. And I'll end with a couple of new poems. I've been thinking a lot lately about my mother's superstitions. She was a very smart, college-educated woman, but she had these Irish superstitions. This is lemon meringue pie. My mother was baking a lemon meringue pie when the phone call came that her mother had died. glossy yellow filling cooling in its tin on that laminate counter with its boomerang print. I was her kitchen helper, 11 years old. I was beating raw egg whites in a wobbly metal bowl. And though it's been years since my grandmother died, served with it for dessert, I still push it aside. And this is a duplex, that wonderful new form invented by Louisiana's Pulitzer Prize-winning poet Jericho Brown, duplex called Inmate on the Loose. My mother grew up in Foxborough, Massachusetts, which was also the home of the state mental hospital. And every so often, an inmate would escape. And as a little girl, she'd be terrified. Inmate on the Loose. When she was a little girl, my mother flew. Radio news that day, inmate on the loose. Radio news that day, inmate on the loose. Daughter sent to the store to buy Wonder Bread. Sent to the store to buy Wonder Bread, she had to get past that fairy tale dungeon. Fairy tale dungeon for the state's insane and sometimes an uncle drying out from drink. Red-nosed uncles locked up with howling madmen. Legs clenched tight so as not to wet her pants. Legs clenched tight so as not to wet her pants. She rose and sailed past the state mental hospital. I know it sounds crazy, my mother would tell us, but once when I was little, I could swear I flew. And you know what? I think she did. And I'll end with another one about my mother and her superstitions. Whenever I dropped a knife, my mother said a man was coming, someone slim and tall, a murderer to slay me in my bed, or favorite uncle with a birthday doll. Whenever I dropped a spoon, my mother said, as I washed dishes in the kitchen sink, that meant a woman on her way instead, round-bellied as a spoon, as one might think. But what about a fork? My mother said that meant that more than one would ring the bell. You couldn't count the times to count the heads, however many only time would tell. Dishwasher on the blink, the words she said come back to me, my elbows deep in foam, although she's more than 25 years dead, whose heirloom silver blackens in my home. Thank you.
Ava Level-Heyman is the 2013-2015 Poet Laureate of the state of Louisiana. Ava is a teacher, editor, playwright, amateur singer, and mandolin student. Her latest poetry collection from LSU Press is Eldest Daughter. She also edits the Barataria poetry series for LSU Press. A number of classical and jazz composers have set her poems to music. During the pandemic, she has led Zoom poetry workshops nationwide and Zoom songwriting workshops for elementary and secondary students from Houston, Texas to China.
Hi, Ava Level-Heyman. I want to thank the State Library for giving us a chance to have our April poetry reading, which we poets all like so much. I'm recording this around lunchtime just to commemorate the way we, outside the pandemic, usually do this reading. So thank you so much, and I'm honored to read with this stellar batch of poets. Louisiana just cooks up all the time. I looked through, I have hundreds of poems in my computer, most of them not readable. I looked through them all. I actually learned a great deal about myself. I learned this sort of now that I'm old, I noticed such a thing. Grew up in a preacher's household, and I came away in adult life with an absolute fascination for religions and a fascination for God, and almost no capacity to settle on one or actually have any kind of conventional belief about one. So I'm sure my father would say it means it didn't mean no good at all. But anyway, here I am, and I'll read a couple of poems like that. The first one is a ghazal. It's for exactly this time of year in March Madness. You know, I'm a basketball fan. And it's called, a ghazal or a ghazal is an old form, Persian form in Farsi, and it has separate couplets, not very many of them, and between each couplet is this absolute change of subject, absolute indifference to anything that's happened before. So it's like kind of like a bunch of haikus, and the last couplet in the Rumi is a ghazal writer. In the last couplet, it makes a turn typically, and the poet refers to the poet's self by some name, like, "You, wanderer, what are you doing talking about this?" That kind of thing in the last couplet. So here is ghazal for April 6. Lilies and trumpets, liturgy, the great art form. Why must resurrection mean a miracle? Why can't it mean another chance? March Madness intrudes into April this year. First matchup game of the women's Final Four, Easter afternoon, 5:30, CNN. To the left of the TV, a bronze cane kills Abel once again. Carved on his chest are words for brother in 9 languages. I cleaned out the fireplace ashes yesterday. Where did we store the damn cover for the opening? Upstairs? Louisiana husband pulling the boat drives to confirmation party, then drives on to Toledo Bend to fish for bass. About 4 o'clock, a sudden rain. No thunder or wind, no first few tap-taps. Whoosh, there it was. Your head fuzzes a bit with the bourbon, old poet. Pay attention. There's love about. Don't miss it. This next poem is titled Bowls. I wrote it after a trip to Africa. I was on a study trip with women. We were studying African family systems and did some work in schools, talked a great deal to African women. And we were out in the country. We saw many things, extraordinary wealth here and there, and extraordinary poverty, kind of horrifying. Many things we saw. And it was just, Africa's just so much. You know how Louisiana is just so much. Your senses are overwhelmed. Africa's even more like that. Too many, too much, everything. So this poem is about bowls, and I had to do with some potters one time who were trying to teach me to throw a pot, and I never could do it. So they gave me their old pots that didn't turn out very well, and they'd give them to me before they fired them, and I would write on them, and I'd write on them. It had to go very slowly, one letter at a time, which changes what you're going to say, as you can imagine. So you have one thing here and another set of words in here, and it's kind of amazing how much difference that makes to be inside or outside. And this is 5 bowls. The stanzas are kind of shaped like the 5 bowls. Bowl number 1. Incised on the outside of the bowl, these words spiral down from rim to foot. Too many countries, too many mouths, too many pot bellies, too many mosquitoes, too many languages, too many wars, too many famines, too many presidents for life, too many Mercedes, too many bare feet, too many clitorectomies, too many palaces, Too many dying babies, too many deserts, too many diseases, too many healthy babies, too many political prisoners, too many executions, too many flies, too many colonial powers, too many poachers, too many missionaries, too many currencies, too many beggars, too many papers, too many tribes, too many bureaucrats, too many bribes, too many genocides, too many rivers, too many babies, too many infibulations, too many prostitutes, too many wives, too many rapes. Written on the inside of the bowl, letters scratched in, one slow stroke at a time when the pot was leather hard. Hunger is a search for mother. Bowl 2, for the one with two parents. The outside cut in fine, clear strokes. Guns, capitalism, dams, railroads, Marxism, loudspeakers, foreign aid transistors, radios, developing markets, satellite photographs, uniforms, cash crops, bulldozers. Inside, in a child's first print, butter, rice, oranges, salt, yams, clean water. Bowl number 3, inside too small to admit a hand. There is only curved shadow, silence, indistinct thumbprints from the first forming. Outside, these words: an earth house, no one home. Why do I think of a certain street? Without emptiness, there is no vessel. Bowl 4, for 15-year-olds. The outside tight clenched, the inside pushes out with all its might. Centripetal, centrifugal. Without the fire, the bowl would fly apart. Outside, who do you think you are? Listen to me. Where do you think you're going? Look at me when I speak. What do you think you're doing? Do you hear me? Who do you think you are? Inside, who am I? Please listen. Where am I going? Look at me. What am I doing? Can you hear me? Who am I? The last words smudge in the wetter clay at the bottom of the bowl. Bowl number 5. Inside. God is who I am. God is who I am. God is who I am. God. Outside. God is who you are. God is who you are. God is who you are. God is who you. Thank you.
Peter Cooley, the 2015-2017 Poet Laureate of the state of Louisiana, was born and educated in the Midwest and has lived over half of his life in New Orleans, where he was director of the creative writing program at Tulane University and is now professor emeritus. He received the Marble Fawn Poetry Award and an Atlas grant from the state of Louisiana. Father of 3 grown children, he published his 11th book, The One Certain Thing, this year. Peter Cooley is poetry editor of Christianity and Literature.
Hello, I'm Peter Cooley. I'm happy to be a part of this series of poet laureates reading their work. And all the poems I'm going to read this afternoon are from my current book, The One Certain Thing, which just came out a few months ago. And this book is a response to the sudden death of my wife of 52 and a half years on March 15th, 2018. Widower. There really is no word for us, is there? Widower from widow doesn't say it. Nothing says it except poetry. More crying. I'm not a widower. I was widowed. And now this imagery. All I have now, all insufficiency. This morning when I woke up, you were here. all indentations in the sheets. You'd left to start the day in your study praying. And before that, in the middle of the night, I reached out to touch you or to be touched. Or was it you trying to touch me? My lines are too interlaced with questioning. And what else is there but this hunger, not hunger, thirst, not thirst, this aching through my arms, my legs? How else can I sing with the birds except to go out before first light again, to let my words alongside them, inside, the song that breaks me up now, assembles me. The next poem I'm going to read is intended to be a humorous poem, and comedy and tragedy are very, very close. There is a comical side to grief, and the comedy for me came from the fact that after Jackie died, everyone wanted to change my life and had many suggestions for how I should do that. Actually, all of the suggestions in this poem really were given to me by friends, acquaintances, and neighbors. And the poem is a response to Rilke's poem in which he says, "You must change your life." Though none or few have read Rilke, the well-meaners or mean-wellers tell me I must change my life, get a girlfriend, someone younger, 60, 50, 40, a neighbor I liked until yesterday who walks his dog each morning past my house, praising my lawn, pronounces, "A 20-year-old Peter for the challenge." Others, busy with my newfound retirement of freedom or boredom, as they perceive it, every diagnosis a register of their own malaise, suggest a move to the lakefront in New Orleans, site of Katrina devastation, or permanence in New Jersey, Missouri, California, where our grown children live. All of them busy, busy, busy. I could drive kids to their lessons, do yard work, dust, cook for everyone. But there is loneliness, and there is solitude. From solitude comes poetry I have written you, these grief poems, and I have hours and days when I can't eat or want to trowel ice cream out of the carton while watching the soaps and Dr. Phil, or surf the internet for a new car, another friend's suggestion to slake grief. Most days I go on surviving with your presence. Every decision I make, I must check with you. Evenings as I read, here you are, across from me. You told me to write this. Make it a light poem, comic relief. All right, I'm doing that. Now I'm going to write a grief poem. Now, read the gospel for today. A number of poems in the book, too, are visitations and deal with the presence of Jackie coming back into my life, not actually seeing her, but just feeling her here. I'm sure you all have felt that when you lost a friend or relative or loved one. My cross entangled in your cross this morning when I pulled them both from my neck to shower. I've been disentangling them an hour now. You gifted me my cross, I gave you yours, mine when I was baptized and confirmed at 30, yours for our 50th anniversary. Before they took your body to be burned, I scooped yours from your neck. No one was there for the laying out room to watch this rite, slipping it on mine. 9 months they've hung together, entangling, disentangling. Obvious. I wasn't going to write this. It's no poem. Maybe it's just you speaking to me again, moving my living hand across the page, touching, slipping apart, skimming mortal day. My last poem is the title poem, The One Certain Thing. And in this poem, I imagine myself dead, coming back to the house my wife and I lived in for 40 years. A day will come, I'll watch you reading this. I'll look up from these words I'm writing now, this line I'm standing on. I'll be right here, alive again. I'll breathe on you this breath. Touch this word now, that one. Warm, isn't it? You are the person come to clean my room. You are whichever one of my 3 children opens the drawer here where this poem will go in a few minutes when I've had my say. These are the words from immortality. No one stands between us now except death. I enter it entirely, writing this. I have to tell you I am not alone. Watching you read, eternity's with me. We like to watch you read. Read us again. And thank you very much. Thank you.
Jack B. Bedell, the 2017-2019 Poet Laureate of Louisiana, is Professor of English and Coordinator of Creative Writing at Southeastern Louisiana University, where he also edits Louisiana Literature and directs the Louisiana Literature Press. Jack's work has appeared in Southern Review, Birmingham Poetry Review, Pigeonholes, The Shore, Terrain, and other journals. His latest collection is Color All Maps New, Mercer University Press, 2021.
Hi, I'm Jack Bedell. Today I'm going to read a 3-poem suite based on a photograph by Frank Relli, Alhambra. Ghost Forest. 1. Backlit by city and refineries glow, these cypress bones shimmer on the still lake's surface. It's easy to see a storm's coming with the sky rolling gray overhead and the water glass calm. Even easier to know these trees have weathered some rough winds, their branches here and there pointing this away and that at what we've done to this place. Their trunks gather here like gory Old Testament prophets come down from the mountain to rest in this body dump. Gold light hitting the moss, all luminol shine and whisper. 2. Water's the only thing that gets in here easily, pushed in by storms or poured through spillway gates. Years of its salt has loosened the coastline's faith, turned forests to roots and sawgrass, constant loss. This water rises, seeps, leaves doubt everywhere dirt should be. It's not worth lying down in the hull of your boat to scrape under the rail trellis if you're only coming here to see what used to be. Do it so you can hear the ghost forest sing about what's coming next after the water's had its way. 3. What is moss if it isn't memory? It hangs off these branches, sways on the breeze like Merton's prayers. The closest these trees will get to needles again. Everything else here is dead still, waiting for the storm to blow in. No frog bellow, no heron flap, just moss waving and the water's slow rise to prove this place breathes. Stillness is faith, locust wine benediction here, and this moss knows all there is to know about holding on and air, and how fully empty time is with all this water aching to fill it. Trunks, branches, sky bruising into storm. Thank you.
John Warner Smith is our current Louisiana Poet Laureate, serving his term from 2019 to 2021. His latest works are Mohammed's Mountain and Our Eyes Shut, New and Selected Poems on Race in America, published by Mad Hat Press, 2021. His work as the current Poet Laureate has taken him from poetry projects in the Louisiana Delta country to work with race expulsions for the Iberia African American Historical Society to a fellowship with the Academy of American Poets.
This poem is titled, What Schools Don't Teach Black Boys in America Today, after Langston Hughes and Sterling Brown. I've known rivers long enough to know not enough black boys take their marks at the start line, perch on the high wire overlooking the world, their wings spread wide, ready to soar toward the sun. Not enough take the stage except to sing, dance, rap rhymes, or mime to songs wearing white painted faces. Maybe they'd rather watch and listen than read Douglas, Baldwin, and King, or cruise, chill, shoot hoops, or wander mall than stand unpainted, reciting Langston, Terence, Danez, and Jericho. It shouldn't matter that white boys whom the world expects to win can wear the black mask. Portier, Denzel Idris style, like auditioning for a Broadway show. Morningbird voice, thick-lipped, bulging tight pants and all, with a little James Brown swagger, stepping toward the stage. Maybe too many black boys in America today know too much of shallow streams and dry desert sands. Don't hear the bell. Their silence rings of untold pain that keeps a boy inside a man. And don't hear words of strong black men who've known ancient dusky rivers. Men who curse love for not loving back, who stumble, fall, or get knocked down, but get up, speak truth out loud, and make a way out of no way with nothing but a tom-tom, crying, laughing, and singing in their hearts.
This poem, The Last Overture, is the last poem in my most recent collection of poems, Migrare. It's a ghazal, a meditative poem in couplets, Arabic in origin. The ghazal is not unlike the mystic practice of dervish whirling, where the elevations in the couplets are eventually grounded in the particulars of being. The Last Overture. We're way too close to that land we once called home. We gather at evening time in the hush arbors. Walk together, children, and were you there, are our journey songs, prelude to the last overture. Between the home you knew as home and the one you're on the road walking to, you're some slur holding yourself together. Your notation, a bridge of sorts, a mark in the staff in the last overture. What you're trying to walk away from are those who teethed on words like prefecture and ligature. What you're hearing are the white symphonies from the other side, golden rain in the last overture. We write tone poems, operas, epistles to you. On boxcar sides, day-glow orange was our signature. You saw that we had been there, that we defiled something. You never heard the last overture. If Stalin sent us Akhmatova, we'd have taken her. Baryshnikov can dance among cranes in a pasture at White Oak. Balanchine, Einstein, Levi-Strauss, Albright, Pulitzer, Pay, all notes in the Last Overture. We've grown used to Harlequin's diamond-patterned dress. He doesn't have to talk. He's that pure. We are afraid of those who walk to us in rags, even if it's all they have to offer to the Last Overture. It's what we have to write on your walls, your never-ending signage of how good you are, your lure to a paradise you lock the gates to. What I must tell you, you will not hear silence as the Last Overture. What held us together, I thought, was surely covenant. You reworked the contract toward indenture. Your barter held when you needed it to, but your sometime slaves will not sing in the Last Overture. You see columns and walls that will protect you from us. We're coded in staves in an entablature you will not read. You are pickers, choosers, cannot hear your own phrasings in the Last Overture. Shostakovich and Mozart, Copland and Stravinsky, Ravel and Satie, they all knew the treasure in what's to come. Beethoven, Glass, Olivier Meisson's Couture embraced in the Last Overture. We mostly walked at night. Every track was black as pitch. We looked everywhere for aperture. We sang Mary Did You Know, recited poems by Rabia. We waited for the Last Overture. What if, pour la fin de temps, we hear the names of all those who've walked to some other shore? Hear then all the above. Hear names we call ourselves. Hear all we call beloved in the Last Overture.